Welcome to the Entrepreneur Gene. I'm your host, Laurie Barkman. Each week, we'll hear from founders and CEOs to explore key decisions they've made for growth, value creation, and challenges along the way. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, offering entrepreneur advisory services from transition to transaction. Don't forget to hit subscribe, follow us for the latest episodes, and visit thebusinesstransitionsherpa.com for more exclusive content. Let's dive in. Some people just have it, and my guest today has it. I think you'll learn why very, very quickly. She did a LinkedIn post that got so many likes and comments. It got not only my attention, but I don't know, maybe 1,000 different people commenting and looking into it. And why I've invited this guest today to the show is because it's so evident. She is passionate about empowering and supporting careers for women and mothers. She has years of experience advising and consulting, management and marketing. And she's an entrepreneur who took being laid off and turned it into a very successful, thriving business that she crafted herself. Please welcome to the Entrepreneur Gene, founder and CEO at Lions and Tigers, Brea Starmer. Brea, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Yeah, we met not too long ago. Gosh, time flies. And you sort of we're on different coasts and you sort of watch people from afar. And this question of the entrepreneur gene, I feel like you just sort of have it. I'm so curious how you feel about it, Brea. Do you think that there's an entrepreneur gene? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I definitely think there is something about a draw towards entrepreneurship. I was actually with a friend last night who works in corporate, like big Fortune 100. She manages a really large team there. And we were talking about it because I was curious her perspective because I've been on both sides of it. And we both felt like there was a call towards building something, creating something. But she said to me, Brea, I just don't have the appetite for risk that you have. And I thought that was a really interesting framing of it because sometimes I think working in corporate is really risky. So it's all a matter of perspective. But yeah, Laura, growing up, my dad owned a bar. And so I saw sort of firsthand what it looked like to be sort of a local entrepreneur and what that meant for him. And then my mom worked in corporate. So I had both sides of the equation and I've done both. And I feel really drawn towards entrepreneurship and inspiring others to do this work. It has been the most satisfying and healing way of working that I could have ever hoped for. So I've been really grateful for this kind of work.
Tell me about the healing. What does that mean? I haven't heard that word yet on the show.
Yeah, I felt like when I was employed by someone else, I made a few folks real rich. Like it was just my job to be in service of their mission. And at really big personal cost. I mean, you talked about the fact that I was laid off, and there's a lot more to that story. But when I got really clear about the purpose of my work and the wealth that I wanted to grow for others, like that really cut through sort of the way in which our money flows. And so to be able to provide that opportunity for others was just something I just knew that I needed to do with my life.
And was there a big time gap between realizing that? I think, just kind of age and stage wise, um, you graduated college, you worked in the working world, and then it kind of came to you in your 30s or 40s?
So, okay, back up a little bit. I went to a state school. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college. So that was already a big deal for my family. I went to work at Microsoft right out of school. Big deal for my family. 4 years into working there, I was really curious about entrepreneurship, but also intrapreneurship, the idea of being an entrepreneur within a corporate setting. But I felt really pulled in some way to like exit and get out and get closer to creation, like value creation. And so I remember I quit my job for Microsoft. I was in hysterics. My boss was like, this is a horrible idea. My mom was like, this is a horrible idea. But I just had this inclination that I need to do it now. There would always be a path back in if I wanted to. And so I went and I consulted to with a mentor. And he said, I said, I'm thinking about getting an MBA and I'm not sure if that's the right path for me. And he said, Brea, you can go and spend $100,000 in 4 years getting an MBA, or you can have someone pay you to do that work. And I thought, well, that's why you're rich and I'm not, So it was a really interesting piece of advice at a really pivotal time. So I went and I stepped into employee number one in a very small business. And I did every single function, Lori, as I grew that company. I was on like irs.gov trying to figure out how to pay taxes and setting up payroll systems and legal. I did all the negotiations of all the contracts. I did all the hiring. I literally did every single job. And then it was such a privilege to get to backfill myself as we grew and scaled. And so I knew what I was great at, what I wasn't good at. And so that I knew that that was in me. And this time I did it on someone else's books. And so I did that a few more times. And I knew that I had a business in me, but I wasn't sure what it was until I did. Until it was really clear that there was a business and I needed to go and pursue it.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the word intrapreneur. Not a lot of people know that or have an appreciation for it and what it really means. In my experience, and being an intrapreneur, I would say it's that person who maybe has experience with smaller companies if you're working in a big one and is bringing more innovation ideas or maybe some innovation processes. Maybe the larger company has formally identified an innovation team. So it's bringing together people who are more entrepreneurial. Sometimes big companies acquire smaller companies for that reason, where they want to acquire, they want to draw in people who have more of that entrepreneurial background. So I kudos to you for sort of seeing that in yourself and saying, hey, how could I, tap into this and all these learnings. So as an entrepreneur now, you work with other business owners, as I know you work with big companies too, but what challenges are you facing that we could talk about?
Yeah. Well, and now that I'm maturing my own company, we're about 6 years into Lions and Tigers. And it's such a privilege to get to make these choices. And I'm rare, right? Like less than 1% of female entrepreneurs make more than $1 million. So we already know that the odds are stacked against us. So I should say that some of the challenges that I have is just being believed, being accepted, like some of those things I face. And also, I feel like there's just not a lot of room to make a mistake. I've got to make a lot of right choices. And also, I feel very grateful for the chance to be the one that makes those choices. The state that we're in now, we've grown substantially over the last 6 years. We have some very large enterprise clients, some smaller mission aligned clients. And where we're at is that, it's my job to figure out where we're resourcing appropriately. So we just invested in growth. So now my growth engine is going fast and I need to catch up on my HR and my ops side. So we're doing some technical innovation on our side. And I've been a part of other organizations and I think I'm just so grateful for those experiences because I really came from something and know what I don't want to do and where I don't want to invest in. And so that's made it really a little bit of a shortcut here for me to be able to not make those wrong choices. Certainly, people is always the thing that I'm drawn to. I think it's such an opportunity. That hasn't been my challenge. Been really lucky at people that have been attracted to our brand and our model and our values and really forward with that. So that has been a great investment for us. Time is a challenge. I have a business that's run by 3 women executives. We have 8 children between the ages of 3 and 16 among us. And so there's a lot of empathy for the kind of I don't even want to say the word balance. Like we're just literally like in it every single day. And so there's just a lot of forgiveness around that. And I'm aware that that impacts our pace. But also it is so good because it brings in the right kind of clients that are attracted to the kinds of leaders that we are. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's all a challenge. And what a beautiful one.
Yeah, absolutely. And if other CEOs are feeling this similar challenge, which you mentioned a few, but the one in particular is there's so many areas, initiatives that we can start. How do we pick the right ones? Sounds like you've got some wisdom there. And how do we learn what to not step in? How did you know which ones to pick?
Well, I think because I had done this before, I mean, I shouldn't say that, I have experienced a scale up from 0 to 200, 300 folks. So I've got that in my back pocket. And I knew because I had worked for other leaders who didn't share my values that investing in people really early on before we even had product market fit was something that was really important to me. And so I hired in a payroll and ops person really early so that I could really focus my time on people development, our values, our mission, like the things that only I could do. I call it highest and best use. I always am focused on the things that only I can do. And so I brought in folks early on that could take over some of the functions that I knew weren't in my highest and best use and that someone else could be great at doing. And because I was so values clear and mission clear from the first day, and we've never shifted that, even though the product has evolved over time, that's made it really easy for us to stay consistent and hold our promises to our people.
I love that. I love that. What excites you about the future of your industry?
Oh man, so much. I mean, I wake up every day clear eyed and jazzed to go to work, to be honest. And really, it's because what I do, just to break it down in a very practical way, is that we build fractional consulting teams. So we go into organizations and we build out the sprint squad that they need to either bridge a gap, to find product market fit, to manage through a change. And so I'm able to bring in this like very specialized talent. When I started this business, it was pre-pandemic. And I really started this as a place to give moms an opportunity to make them the richest part of our society. That was the original idea. It has grown far beyond that because we know that there are so many folks that are underrepresented in the way in which we work, traditional ways of working. And so they're opting out. And so I feel very called to keep these voices in our working ecosystem because they drive our biggest innovation. So I wake up every day very excited about the independent worker movement, about the entrepreneur movement, the kind of representation that we're seeing in that today. And I feel really excited by clients who want to make sure that they're tapping into that as a key business strategy. And so that's where I spend most of my time is figuring out how do we build these blended teams that are built for this future of work.
Hey, if you love the insights on this show, you'll love the insights I share in my book, written for entrepreneurs like you who are building with your exit in mind. Take the next step in your business journey to make your business more scalable and valuable. Head on over to btsherpa.com/book to grab your free digital copy of the Business Transition Handbook. Or you can also click the link in the show notes, btsherpa.com/book. That is really inspiring. And as someone who's been through different iterations of the way we work, I'm a Gen Xer, right? So I'm kind of sandwiched between here's how we've always done it, right? With our typewriters and then literally, with computers coming out in the workplace and email becoming a thing and kind of going through that as well. And now everything in our environment, especially in leadership, marketing, sales, all these and technology just in general, right? All these new tools and capabilities that we just haven't had before, enabling entrepreneurs to run businesses and scale businesses in a whole amazing way, right? So and not having to have buy these, not to pick on Oracle, but not having to buy the Oracle servers. You can just use Amazon AWS and get your, technology startup off the ground faster, better, less expensive. Amazing, amazing tools. I love how you've approached the culture, the team, the people side of the business in a very unique way. What is something characteristic of that as you think about the hiring process and trying to find the right fit people, how do you go about that to make sure that they're a right fit for your culture?
I think we've always been really brand forward. We've been very honest about where we stand in the market, the values that are really intrinsic to Lions and Tigers. We're really transparent about that, and we talk about that every day. You talked about a LinkedIn post. I mean, I am on LinkedIn all the time, just talking about my life, about the way in which I run a business, the way in which I run a family, and I think that there's just a naturalness and an easiness to that that does feel really rare because so many of us are trying to just keep our head down and keep doing work, but just to have some humanity in how we show up. We often are my executive team, we look at each other and we're like, it feels like the bar is so low. And when people come into Lions and Tigers, once a month they host this call called Founders Connect, where I just get to meet our new folks that are coming in and taking on work with us. And I had one person say to me that Lions and Tigers feels like the aloe to her workplace burns. And it's like, what is happening out there where we are just churning through people in a way that is not sustainable, that is driving this burnout culture? And as we see these warnings from the Surgeon General about mental health and, of course, the role of caretakers and all that we have to bring to the workforce and our families at the same time, it just is not a sustainable way of working. And so simply treating people with respect, with dignity and agency has been really counterculture. And I hope that that becomes a more infectious and attractive way to work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. Bria, let's talk about your origin story. Let's learn a little bit more about you. You shared a little bit about growing up and going to school, but what are some of the other highlights that you would want to share that helps us understand what your driving force behind founding your company, Lion? I always want to add the bear.
I
Where's the bear? I was going to say lions, tigers, and bears. Where's the bear?
Yes, we hear that a lot. Um, sure. When I was growing up, I come from a family that there was, a lot of divorce and a lot of change and transition. So when I was young, I was 4 when my parents divorced. And every Sunday, I would pack a bag and I would move from house to house. So from 4 to 18, every Sunday I was moving. And so I was always really grateful that I had so many folks rooting for me, even sort of as an only child, and then later with a half brother in these blended families. So sort of transition and change is just something that I was born into and was really fine with at an early age. And then as I got into high school and college and became a student, I realized that, academics is not my jam. Like I just was never going to be the smartest person in the room, but that people were. Like I was always so drawn to people. So I didn't have any friends really as I started into this new high school. So I ran for freshman class president. Like I thought, well, at least they'll know me then. And then I got kind of drawn into that and I became student body president in high school and then for my college. And doing that at a state land grant university is really an incredible experience. I represented 22,000 students at the age of 20. And to get to step into a representation role that young in your life when you're trying to represent such a swath of people and advocate for how resources are spent, how representation looks when you're talking to a board of regents and a legislative body, it was just I knew that I was in the right spot. And so I've always been drawn to these roles where I got to sort of challenge a system. I got to, take on that role of an advocate for a group of folks that didn't have a voice. And that's just always something that I've been really grateful for. And so now, as I think about this role of entrepreneurship and capitalism and how I go into this for profit world and create space and economic outcomes for people, it's just really sat with me this whole time that this is the work that I was born to do.
I love it. I love that you had that training ground in college too. You leaned in on leadership roles at a young age, which is amazing, and it served you well. If you could go back in time, Bria, and give yourself some entrepreneurial advice, what would it be? When would it be?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think I still struggle with this because of my optimistic nature. I tend to trust folks for a long, long time and hope. So there are folks that you find that are fast to fire, that are fast to move on. They feel fast. I am not that. I sometimes hold on too long. I sometimes sit as an optimist or an idealist, hoping that it will work out or that other people share in the same commitment that I do. And that's not always true. And that's because not everyone's built the same. And so I think that if I would have embraced that a little bit earlier on, I might have saved myself a little bit of money in a few cycles. But I don't know. That's something maybe I'll learn in my 50s. Something to look forward to.
Something to look forward to. Absolutely. I know you're super busy and work keeps you busy, and also you try to have a life outside of work. What are some of those things that you enjoy spending time with, or who you spend time with?
So, Lori, I have 3 kids still in car seats. So, I've got a 3-year-old girl, a 5-year-old boy, and an 8-year-old boy. We've just started sports, so I had no freaking idea how big of a commitment that was, and a husband that has stepped into a coaching role for our Pee Wee football team. So, most of my time is spent on sidelines and wrangling little kids, which is a great job, but there's something to that. And most of my time, honestly, is spent obsessing over my business, to be honest. I aspire to have hobbies and I will at some point. But right now, I'm optimized for wealth. I think there are times when you're optimized for health and sometimes you're optimized for wealth. And that's the stage that I'm in right now. It's just keeping up with my family, getting my groceries delivered, and keeping my business going.
I love it. At some point, we'll have you back on, and you'll talk about all the hobbies
I'll get there.
and all the free time you've created by all the delegation skills that you've built over the years. Now, I mean, you're probably hardwired to be very involved in the business, but there is a natural point in time when business owners do start to take that step back. But it makes a ton of sense that you're not there yet. And that's absolutely okay. And I think it's very relatable. I think there's a lot of listeners out there that are going to go, yep, that's where I am too. That's where I am too. But it is important to try to get those separations when you can, just from your own, health and well being.
For sure, for sure. And I would compliment to your book. I have it all marked up and lots of notes within there because you talk so much about the role of an operator, not being the founder. And so that's been something I've really been intentional about over the last 2 years. And so I'm really grateful for the operating team across my business that enables me to step out. I went on a 3-week RV trip with my family just about a month ago and barely worked. And that was phenomenal. So those are like markers I look at to know that we're on the right track. And so, yes, I'm really, really lucky to have a team that actually operates the day-to-day of the business. And although I'm obsessive over the business, it's mostly about where are we going and what are the stories that we're telling and how are we attracting folks and what's the, future of this industry. So I'm in a great job. I mean, this is like such a good spot to be in.
Yeah, it's a dream position when it doesn't even feel like work, right? It feels just like fun, and you're creating opportunities for your customers, obviously adding value, but of course for this amazing workforce that you've cultivated and are growing every single day. So it's so cool. I'm sure people are going to want to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about lions and tigers. What's a good way to do that?
I am really into LinkedIn. So find me there for sure. I love to connect with you and hear your stories. I love to be engaged with other entrepreneurs who are building things there. So I would say find me on LinkedIn. Lions and Tigers has a big presence, of course, on social as well. But I'm definitely most present on LinkedIn. And I should also mention, I have just started little baby angel investing. So now I get to start inspiring others and investing in other entrepreneurs who are starting their own pre-seed funding ideas. And it's been an absolute fascinating journey. So that's been a whole other way to get a hold of me.
Oh, very, very cool. Well, that's cool. And we'll put all those links in the show notes also. Um, Brea, thank you so much for coming on the Entrepreneur Gene.
Thank you, Laura. This is great. Thank you for having these conversations. It's so important to normalize this work and to make it feel fun and accessible. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. And to our audience, thanks so much for being here. If you learned something today or laughed or just said, oh, wow, that's really cool, I can relate to that, tell someone about this podcast, share it with them. Be sure to tune into our YouTube channel also so you can see this video. And again, thank you so much to my guest, Brea Starmer. This has been another exciting episode of The Entrepreneur Gene. Hey, that's a wrap. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, working with entrepreneurs who want to escape feeling like a prisoner in their own business and to eventually let go flawlessly. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to help support the Entrepreneur Gene, I'd encourage you to leave a rating and review. Ratings and reviews truly help our show grow and get in front of more entrepreneurs just like you. If you do leave a rating and review, we'll be so happy. Take a screenshot of it, send it to my email, Laurie@btsherpa.com, and we'll send you a free digital copy of my book, The Business Transition Handbook. And we'll also enter you to win one of our monthly swag boxes. For show notes, including links to everything in today's episode, be sure to visit btsherpa.com. Also, as a reminder, you can watch this full video interview on our YouTube channel for the Business Transition Sherpa. While you're there, be sure to check out videos from our award-winning podcast called Succession Stories. We'll see you next time on The Entrepreneur Gene.